Hiya. My name's Amanda, and I'm the Ensemble Manager for the Washington Metropolitan Gamer Symphony Orchestra. Hype, hype. I believe we are the oldest community gamer symphony orchestra in the country. That's community orchestra, not collegiate. We were founded from people who had started the University of Maryland Gamer Symphony Orchestra, and WMGSO is about to hit its 10th year in like a couple months. What I'm going to be playing for you guys, and this is like a special just happening at MAGFest right now, we just launched our Indiegogo campaign for our second album. Now this album has a lot of fun perks, including things like our hoedown chicken that you can ride, and it's yellow, and as well as like the album and things like that. We're going to be listening to Vamo a la Flamenco, which was recorded in a studio in Rockville from our WMGSO members. And then we'll get in the panel. So again, this is our second album we are releasing. If we have time at the end after Q&A, I can play some of our additional singles that we have, but We have fun things you can get. Look how cute those dumplings are, handmade. The vendor that's actually making them will be at MAGFest, which is nice. You can talk to her. We got these fun earrings. Let me get to the hoedown chicken. Look at that. See that hoedown chicken? It's a very nice hoedown chicken. And you can do add-ons and things like that. So, all right, let's get into the panel. All right, thank you for coming out to Recruitment and Retention in GSOs. GSOs meaning Gamer Symphony Orchestras, in case anyone thought this might be something else. Raise your hand if you're in a Gamer Symphony Orchestra. Fun, fun, fun. Raise your hand if you're in a collegiate orchestra, Gamer Symphony Orchestra. All right, now raise your hand if you're in a community one. Which community one are you two from?
Norwalk, Gamer Symphony Orchestra, Connecticut.
In Connecticut? Okay, what about you back there? New Jersey, okay. And then I know where you're from, Adam. Yeah. Thanks for coming out to the panel. This is extremely early, but I'm glad y'all can make it. A little bit about myself for those who came in late. My name's Amanda. I've been with WMGSO since 2016. I'm a soprano. Then I went on to dev team, and then I became Ensemble Manager literally 3 weeks before we had to pull from having in-person rehearsals, and we went totally virtual. So that was rough, but we've been back for a year now in person. And how I'm relevant to this panel is that as the ensemble manager, I am directly involved with recruitment and retention in our Gamer Symphony Orchestra. And I schedule auditions and make sure that seats are filled when it is about to approach the next season. I have auditioned over 70 musicians. We'll probably be looking at 75 by the time spring happens. And our retention rate is about 95% since we've come back, which is huge. Previously, we did struggle around our 5-6 year mark with retention, but we're looking pretty good now. There's a couple of reasons for it, so we'll talk about it. I mentioned earlier that we were founded by some alumni of GSO. In fact, some of the original alumni who founded University of Maryland Gamer Symphony Orchestra. Or are you guys GSO at UMD now?
I mean, UMGSO, GSO at UMD, Gamer Symphony UMD.
Okay, I just don't want a branding manager to pop out of the woods and just smite me. Huh?
The one you have there is the good one.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, we were really tiny. We actually used to be able to rehearse in a little church in Rockville, and now we actually had to increase the size of the venue we rehearse. We actually aren't at 115. We're more like 130 performing members. We did release an album in 2018, and we're going to be recording another album in 2023 this summer. And we performed at MAGFest, super fun. We were a lot smaller then, and our 10th anniversary is, I want to say March. All right, so you're looking at that and you're why did you basically onboard a whole nother sized orchestra in your symphony orchestra? Well, the pandemic definitely happened, and people moved during that time. Our orchestra, I don't want to say is aging, but it went from the demographic of early mid-20s to now a bunch of us are entering our 30s and have moved out of the area for jobs, and we've actually we have more people coming from other orchestras and professional avenues that didn't go to University of Maryland or were part of another Gamer Symphony Orchestra. Pandemic safety, because it was still pretty risky to be out in public, we had some people kind of drop out for a while. We actually have a hiatus clause that went into effect where for a year and a half you can go on a hiatus and not lose your seat in the orchestra. But then after kind of figuring out what their risk level was, some of them opted not to come in and they might try to re-audition in a few years. And we did have a change in leadership. So we had a restructuring to try to make the orchestra a more positive experience. We wanted to focus on enrichment and experiences being an experience being being able to perform at MAGFest or going on tour, things like that, smaller conventions, as opposed to we just do concerts, which is a very important thing to do because it turns out a lot of our orchestra members are fueled with the idea that they want to go out and do more than just the concerts. They want to go travel, perform at conventions, do recitals. So really expanding that. And then we had a onslaught of University of Maryland GSO graduates who wanted to come in and audition for us. And so we did have some people join in from that. Now, the important distinction here is that we had to explain to some of them, we're an auditioning group. So unfortunately, everyone who came in from, or who was auditioning from GSO, UMD, not all of them were able to get in, which is rough. I think we had like 30 people in like fall of 2021 from University of Maryland, because there was like, you guys had a delay as well with concerts. And I felt real bad because some friends got in, but some people couldn't, just because we unfortunately can't have like 15 trumpets or 45 violins, but we just essentially do like a wait list. Yeah. All right, so you're thinking about recruiting. You kind of need to know how big you can get, first off, because we definitely found out some things. So one of them is rehearsal space. We used to rehearse in this very small high school where our orchestra was so tight that when the choir went in to rehearse with them, I was actually holding my binder on top of a brass player's head. Like, there wasn't anywhere to go, and I just had to be like, hey, I'm sorry, dude. We're just doing this. And we couldn't even fit our percussion in the full back. So it got a little spicy. But with that comes cost. So we actually had to go and rent a more expensive place to rehearse. And I think it's like $175 per rehearsal for us, which money can get a little spicy, so they're going to want to build up your dev team to be able to afford stuff like this. If you're in a collegiate group, that's not necessarily going to be an issue. Sometimes you're granted space to be able to rehearse without a cost, or there's something built into your student government to be able to rent out that place. There's apparently some old thing where the UMD, when it first started, rehearsed in an attic somewhere of some hall.
Armory. Oh yeah.
Yeah, the armory. Okay, yeah.
Which basically an oversized attic.
Yeah, see, it's one of those things. I didn't go to UMD, I went to Hood College, but I had a friend who was going right when it was founded, and I heard stories. So when you figure out your maximum size, there's a couple different things you can take into account too. Do you want to be a traditional symphonic orchestra where you have a specific number of brass instruments, violins, things like that, or do you want to make a little smaller or a little bigger? Just because you can have 10 trumpets doesn't mean that's going to be a good sound. Your trumpets are going to blow out the rest of your orchestra. And we actually kind of ran into this with our violins. We had so many violins, our conductor had to ask them to quiet down, which was something we had never experienced before. Now we're going to talk about venue costs. So costs have gone up due to COVID. A lot of venues now have new security restrictions, things like that, especially when they were requiring vaccinations or masks. And our size, we were able to fit on a smaller standard stage. But now that we're 100 plus people, we have to be on a full concert stage, Kennedy Center, things like that. We can't afford it. The Kennedy Center is oh God, I want to say $15,000 or something wild. Same with the Strathmore in the area, which could fit our size. So we went out to Virginia. And now we're looking at about $8,000 per concert, and that's the low end. So then you have to think about how many concerts per season you can afford with the size of your orchestra. And things you don't think about, they charge you for having a piano on stage. They try to charge you to set up chairs and things like that when you get a certain size. Stand rentals, we went and bought our own stands. Which is a good investment to have, because once you're getting that big, places don't have enough stands for you. One place only had 50 stands, and we were we need 80. And don't grow too fast, and be mindful that people take up space. If you have 4 trombones, you're going to have 4 trombones. You're going to have to be cognizant of who's in front of them and block out that space. And if you do grow too fast, you're going to find lag time in trying to book those concerts. Which could make your membership sad, because dates are very important to have ahead of time. We do generally try to have our membership know the date of a concert at least 8 months beforehand. Once you're getting tighter than that, people have obligations, weddings, and especially if you do have professional musicians in your orchestra where it's their livelihood, they need to know those concert dates so they don't double book themselves. Figure out your musicality level. So WMGSO went from being like a casual social, we like music, we were playing from UMD, to we expect our musicians to be able to read music. We expect people to show up to at least 70% of our rehearsals because we are playing for a crowd that pays money to listen to us. So that's good to highlight there. And in terms of being professional, I heard a little bit of this discussion. Figure out if you're going to be a community level or if you're going to go for that union status and pay all of your musicians. It is incredibly hard to start an orchestra and also make it so your members can be paid. You need a huge donor base, and unfortunately, I don't think I know of a Gamer Symphony Orchestra that's reached that level yet. For instance, right now we only have 2 stipend positions, and that's our 2 directors. Everything else, all of the revenue we generate goes into operation costs, our insurances, things like that, our venues. So highlight that right from the get-go. You don't want someone to kind of come in, like we've had this before when we were more casual, and they were like, I'm a concert master of this other orchestra, you guys aren't on my level, and then they get sad and leave. But the reverse can happen as well. You don't want someone coming in who's looking for a more social experience that can't necessarily make it there every rehearsal going, you guys are really pushing me and making me feel bad for not going to Juilliard, right? So WMGSO tries to have the mid-ground. We accept musicians who, they played in college, but they don't do this for a livelihood, and then we do have musicians who, do lessons and are with 17 other orchestras. And how do you fill those seats? Well, do you want to just do open seating where you can have people kind of just come in if there's an open spot and there's no competition? That's fine. Or you can have auditions. Auditions are a good way to kind of see what level of musicality you're looking for. It starts off that relationship right away because you're going to be talking to that person when they're auditioning in front of you. You're going to be answering questions. You're going to hear them play in front of you. And an audition is for lack of a better word, a more intimate experience with that musician. It can be one-on-one. And people have nerves, right? It's kind of scary to audition in front of a panel. So when we do that, when we hold our auditions, we explain it, right away. I go, hey, when you're auditioning for us, you're going to get your music 3 weeks in advance. Pick your date. Have them pick their date. That way they can choose how hard they want to go. If they only need a week to get ready, that's fine. Go for it. If they need 3 weeks, that's okay too. I tell them that their panel is going to be the music director, myself, and the section leader. That way there's not a surprise. And how we've been running it to make a more casual or a less stressful experience, I should say. We don't keep music in front of us. So we're not holding papers and making notes. You're doing your audition, and if we have to return to them saying, hey, we want you to go back to section A, we will go behind the stand and kind of point where we need them to listen to. And then think about what being a member of the GSO means. So is it that you show up and you play rehearsals, or do you have other benefits? Do you do nights out? Do you have discount programs you can clue into? Are there special travel things you can do? All right, recruitment tools. Social media is incredibly important in this day and age. There was a time where you could put up a poster at your local whatever and musicians would see it. That's not the case anymore. You need to be on top of social media, and your social media needs to kind of be a little more substantial in order to get that reach. Unfortunately, with Facebook and things like that, they want you to pay money, or if you don't have a certain amount of followers, it's not going to reach everyone. So start working on that now if you haven't. If you are looking to recruit collegiately, hit up your student activities board, have a table, have it going more than just the first 3 weeks of school. Have activities throughout the semester so people are thinking about it. You have transfer students, you have people that might have dropped a class that meant they can join. And don't sleep on Reddit. I have found so many people who joined our orchestra through Reddit. And it was a social media platform we hadn't thought of. But Reddit's great. You get to put on an image, you get to highlight everything you're about, and you can go on Facebook and post in your local groups. Now think about which groups you want to go to. Like I had posted in a classical singers network, the WMGSO was looking for choir, but you need to make sure you put up front that it's like a community orchestra and it's volunteer. Like I put that at the bottom. It needs to say volunteer everywhere, because I had some very spicy emails come in my inbox being like, what do you mean you don't pay your musicians? It's like, we can't afford to. Like operating costs. Like, I'm sorry, this is like a love, passion project for everyone here. So we kind of all do it together. Attend conventions. Like MAGFest, I think still does this, like nonprofit tables. I know other conventions do. Go and get a table. If it's free, great. If it's $50, put that in your budget. Make it part of your outreach, your advertising costs. Make sure you have on the table things they can look at. Fun pictures are great. Have a sign what you're looking for. Speed auditions could absolutely be a thing if you had a space to do it. Like at MAGFest, I'm going to probably be pitching this. If we really need instruments and they brought their instrument here, find a room and be like, here's the music. We'll do a preliminary audition to see how you like it. And if they ace it out of the park, because if you're coming here to audition, you must like really be on top of your game, that's really helpful. So nerdom and musicianships do often overlap. Like I've been to sci-fi conventions where people are talking about how they like play for groups and hadn't heard of a video game orchestra, and I'm like, I like Star Trek and I play music, here you go. And I give them my card. So when I mentioned about communication, you need to follow up with your auditionees. So in my experience, I send out an email, and if I don't hear back, like they'll reply, but if I don't hear back after 2 weeks, it's likely it's fallen off their radar. Send them a Google Calendar invite when you schedule that audition. Make sure you don't put too much info in that first email when you're scheduling it. Give yourself reasons to follow back up with them. Send an email from like the first day. You don't hear back. You go, hey, are you still interested? I have you on my wait list. Do you want to audition? And then after maybe one more, trying to follow up with them, they might not be interested. You can either take them off your list or, say, hey, maybe next season. Give them their music early so they're not anxious. Like you don't want to contact someone with an audition and not have your music ready. And you want to make sure they have all the tools they need to rehearse with it, because it's very different to rehearse by yourself versus with a group. And give them conceptuals. If you're able to take those files and break down just their instrumental part, that's helpful too, especially because they'll be playing alone. And touch base with them 5 days before you meet them. Like, be like, hey, I'm going to be wearing this shirt. I'll meet you at the front door. Have a liaison, because this is a new experience for them, and you don't want to just have them thrown to the wolves, because they're not just a person. They're a member in your orchestra that you would like to stick around. It helps them make friends. Like, when I couldn't meet personally some of my auditionees, I had my assistant make sure to go and walk them to their room. Do you need anything? Do you need water? I had water ready for them. I said, if you don't have your music, that's fine. We'll figure it out. Like, you lost it. We had one person print out her music, and she was, like, missing a page of it. I'm like, that's fine. Life happens. And this helps catch no-shows early. So if you don't hear back from them, and it's, like, 2 days beforehand, don't be afraid to call them. So we, on our form, have a phone number section, because if they're not showing up, that wastes your time, too, and you can bump someone to a slot that may have not been able to make it or change things around, so you can be flexible. Phone calls can be, scary in this generation, but they don't have to be. It's especially if you're trying to be, you can be professional, but not like a professional orchestra, if you get what I mean. So say they make it in, super great. Make sure you send them an email saying if they got in within like 5 days, and if it's going to take more time, say you have to audition 12 violins up front, send them that email to remind them. Tell them at the audition, hey, it's going to be like 2 weeks before you hear back. Don't worry, nothing's a problem. We just got to get through all these people in a timely manner. Send a handbook, a welcome package, someone they can talk to. Tell them who their section leader is. That next rehearsal, when they show up, you meet them. Introduce them to people. Give them a shout out at their first rehearsal. Be like, hey, welcome our new people. It's nice to have you. Make sure the section leader reaches out. Like our brass section leader, I'm like, oh, hey, you have a new person. He sends the part out to them so they know what they're playing when they show up. And then check in with them midway through the season to see if everything's okay. Sometimes you might catch someone who's a little more introverted, and they're like, hey, I actually haven't, I don't know who's here. I don't know anyone. Can you help me out? So this is also part of recruitment and retention. If someone doesn't get in, don't be a jerk about it. Give them feedback. Say they almost made it, but they didn't quite make it. Be like, hey, it was just very competitive. You were fine. You were a strong player. In fact, would you be okay if we can have you on a wait list, especially if they're that strong of a player? And then reach back out to them every season after. Don't lose them. See if they're still interested. See if they want to be a substitute. Highlight their strengths. Be clear, and be upfront if they can't audition again. If unfortunately they show up and they're not who you're necessarily looking for, don't give them the hope that they might not be able to have. You can be like, hey, you might benefit for some lessons. You can give them resources and be like, at this time, it would be very difficult for you to be, in an orchestra. That would be stressful, and we don't want this to be a bad time for you. But don't say, oh yeah, audition next season, because that wastes their time too, and you don't want to get this reputation for just kind of wasting people's time and giving them hope that's not there. If the spot is full and you have a wait list, you email every person who's interested every season. I get people asking, 4 weeks within the season. So what I started to do is right before I hold those auditions, because people talk, people are friends, and it feels bad to have your friend be like, oh, I got an audition email, and the other guy's like, I hadn't heard anything. So get a schedule sent email ready, especially if you know what spots are absolutely full, and you tell them, hey, thanks for signing up to audition. Unfortunately, we're entirely full. If you're not interested in being on the wait list, let me know. If not, we will contact you when a spot opens up. And they're definitely helpful. We have pulled some people in last-minute situations where we did need to fill some spots, and we go, hey, I see in your resume that you play first violin for, fancy orchestra. Would you like to be a substitute? We audition substitutes, which is helpful. And that way we kind of know where they might fall in when we have the other audition for the seat. And these people can end up joining later, and that's fine. Keep it positive. So musicians are providing a service, right? We're playing music. Which means people go to the concerts, and you can't have concerts without musicians. So there are incentives for being a member in the orchestra. You can set up discount programs. For a while, we had a discount with music and arts. You say, hey, I'm part of WMGSO. You got 10% off your order. We work with local instrument shops, and we had a couple master classes. We had a physical therapist come in and kind of work with our musicians who are having injuries related to playing music. And we do social stuff. We'll have bonfires, barbecues. We meet up at MAGFest. And if you have these exclusive spaces as well, we have a Discord that you're kind of only in if you're a WMGSO member. Facebook groups, things like that. It doesn't seem like a lot at first, but once you start stacking those things up, it's, I don't want to say a country club, but it can really bring some pride to being a WMGSO member rather than just showing up on a Monday, right? Because we're more than that. We're people and musicians. So sometimes in a very big orchestra, conflicts happen. Not everyone's going to be best friends. Sometimes we might have a policy that maybe isn't super popular with the community, and that's fine. Take feedback always. Listen to people, give them space, have them explain why they're not happy with something. Have community guidelines. So for WMGSO, we have a membership agreement you sign right when you onboard. It highlights a bunch of stuff. It's your attendance policy. It says, please don't be a jerk. And if you're a jerk, we're going to have a talk with you and see if you're going to be able to stay in the community. And then we have an admin agreement where if you're an admin, there are expectations you have outlined right then and there. You have to answer emails between 2 to 5 days, be respectful, you're a face of WMGSO. but have those available publicly. Like you sign a big, long admin agreement or a membership agreement. You might not remember what you signed like 2 months later, so have a copy on your website. Have a membership portal so people can find that documentation. Have your bylaws accessible and your handbook accessible. And make sure your admin are trained on how to tell members like where to find stuff. So for my section leaders, I made a video. I'm like, your people in your section should be able to ask you questions on where to find your documentation. And have avenues to like report conflicts. So 2 people get into a fist fight, you want to have some avenue to like handle that if it's during a rehearsal. So we have a grievance committee where it's a form that can be anonymous where people can submit incident reports, and then we have a committee that takes a look at it before our board gets involved. It can be little things like, oh, you know, I felt like so-and-so isn't being respectful with their stand. They keep blocking my view after I ask them to kind of move it. That's when the grievance committee can kind of step in and mediate things or take higher level issues that might happen. And we rotate that out every couple years. And you want to resolve those in a timely manner. Any conflict, especially if it's with like someone in your admin or upper leadership. Because when you have 1 or 2 people who are unhappy, they talk to their friends, and you have something brewing with a bunch of people, and then you're going to find out every single thing that's not going right for people at maybe not the best time, and it's going to overwhelm you. So those little things do add up, and, you know, invite people to have a meeting with you. Be like, oh, hey, you know, something's not working, let's talk about it. So you also want active participants. So for us, we wouldn't have like, we would have this survey that would go out at the end of every season, like in between seasons, where we're like, hey, do you want to come back to WMGSO? And the reason we started doing this is we didn't know what seats would be filled, because sometimes people just kind of like leave, or they're like, oh, I was too busy. Well, if you don't know about it, that's going to impact the time that you're trying to find people on audition. You've set yourself back 4 weeks. So it is an engagement tool. So I give them about like 5 or 6 weeks to tell me if they're coming back. And if they don't fill out that form, it's an automatic resignation, especially when your seats start getting to be a little cramped and you can't just like audition people. It's not you're in every season after you get an audition. It's you're in after an audition, but then you have to tell me you're coming back. And unfortunately, we have had the situation where someone was like, oh, I didn't read my email. And I went, I have to re-audition you, even if there's like no wait list, because we take that seriously. Attendance impacts morale, so if you have someone that like didn't let you know they were coming back and they didn't show up for the first 8 rehearsals, which led to some people being like, well, why didn't these like 3 people show up? People stop showing up to rehearsals and then everything collapses. It impacts morale. So you want to keep that morale high, which means keeping people engaged and having check-ins. And this is where we go into rotating things to make sure people stay in. So we add new things for membership to do. Like we recently started an initiative to have recitals for members who want to have like 25 minutes to themselves to just perform in front of an audience. That's been pretty successful. We have arrangers arranging things that can be performed at recitals or chamber groups. I mentioned the classes, and just we kind of changed things up so there's always something kind of new happening. Like we had singles for the album this year. We had people who were able to opt in and kind of like play in groups they weren't necessarily a part of before. That way we don't make it seem like only the like top tier people or professional people can join in, because we kind of don't want to gatekeep music, because that's not fun either. Oh, and I forgot this part, my bad. We do have like internal resources as well. We have people who are like, hey, I can teach this class, is that okay? Or is it fine if I do this? Like we have some artists that want to like do stuff for the orchestra. We had a couple people approach me this year about running some master classes because they're like a professor. Talk to your board to see if there's a liability issue, and talk about what it looks like if you do need to have some sort of monetary exchange. But just make sure you provide that to people. And finally, make it fun. Like, don't make your rehearsals super stressful, because then people leave. So make sure you go over when people are having a good rehearsal moment, hey, that sounds great, thanks. Like, did you listen to that? That was super cool. Let your, but don't go overboard. You might end up with a lot of chit chat, which is also kind of bit us in the butt before. Keep it on task, positive, and then when you do have to go over something that might be critical, don't single people out. If it does come to that point, maybe someone's having a really bad day on their instrument, go to them after rehearsal and see if they need resources. For us, we offer one-on-ones with the section leader. We have people we know that can do lessons. I know we talked about within my ensemble about trying to do stipend lessons, things like that. And we rotate out who gets solos. The section leader can actually be hey, you haven't had a solo before, would you like to kind of do this? And then for the larger solos, we do audition for them. Let your membership be part of the process when you're picking repertoire and arrangements. I already touched on the solos and performances, and then give back to the ensemble. So something I've been doing is trying to find a membership gift for my membership. And what I did this past year is that since we're about to reach our 10th year anniversary, I have little acrylic pins I give to people after they've been here a year, and then their 3rd year, 5th year, 7th year, 10th year. So they get a pin they can wear at the concert denoting how long they've been with the orchestra, which is a huge sense of pride. You want to celebrate the people who have been here for 10 years or, perhaps even more in the future. Write out 5-year plans so you know where the orchestra is going, but send it out to the membership so they also know your roadmap and have them involved. At the end of every season, we do a town hall. I send out a survey. It doesn't have to be anonymous, but it can. And I go, tell me what you want and what you like, what we're doing, and what don't you like. And they'll tell you what they don't like. And that's where you kind of can build the orchestra around what they want. I sent out a survey last year asking the ensemble, I'm hey, I'm hearing you want to do more concerts, but how many concerts do you actually want to do? And I had a bunch of people being 5 a season, and I was dang, I want that energy. And then going back to the tiny gifts thing, so I know there were sometimes frustrations where way back in the day, people wouldn't bring pencils to rehearsals. We have smartphones. Who's writing? My handwriting sucks because I type now. I don't think to bring a pencil. Whoops. So I bought a bunch of pencils on Amazon, and I just handed out the first rehearsal. I'm have a pencil. Woo! Mechanical pencils. Don't do sharpened ones. All right, anyone have questions? Come to the microphone so I can hear you. Hopefully I'll have all the information you're seeking.
I'm pretty loud. I have conductor voice, but I'll stand here.
Woo!
Hello. Hi. I actually wanted to ask a little bit about Reddit. You mentioned that as a great avenue for recruitment. Just kind of what your process would be. Do you start your own subboard? Do you just how does that work out? Also, great panel. Thank you for all this.
No problem. Yay. Okay, so I wouldn't start your own subboard because then you have to recruit people to your subboard, and chances are if you make your own, it's already going to be musicians in your orchestra joining your subboard, which isn't helpful because what we did is we went to local community Reddit boards DC, Nova, Frederick County. Do your counties, but read the rules to see if it falls under promotion. For us, since we're also educational, they let our image happen. So for us, you want to have a graphic that already denotes what you're looking for without having to write a paragraph explaining it. And you can have the website right under it. So do local, maybe within 30 minutes, then branch out a little further. We have people coming 2 hours away to our rehearsals who found us on DC Reddit. I would definitely start local with a graphic, and I wouldn't worry about starting your own board, not unless you're looking for that extra engagement from your community and internally.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks for the tips.
No problem. And I saw someone else with their hand raised. Would you like to come to the microphone or shout at me?
I'll shout.
Okay.
Pretty loud. If somebody wanted to join, you said that you guys do auditions. Where can somebody go to apply to join?
Specifically for us or people in general? Like for us, okay, so if you're looking to join WMGSO, you can go to our website at wmgso.org and find the Join Us tab. We also have a table in the Merchant Hall, which should be open in like !15 minutes. I will be there, I think, from 3 to 5. Huh?
It opens at 3.
3 o'clock. All right, 3 o'clock's the magic number. But we have a table there, and you can also like be walked through how to sign up there. It asks you a bunch of questions, your background. Make sure you put in your correct email address, because I've definitely had a couple people misspell it, and then I'm like, I contacted you. Where were you? You have 7 Z's in your name. You only put 5 of them. I'm sorry.
You said WMGSO.com?
.org. And then join us. And then if you do it correctly, I get a ping on my phone, so I can tell you immediately. All right. Hello.
Yeah, hi. So you said that the grievance committee thing you mentioned, you said it's different than the board. So my question is, how do you go about, I'm assuming the board has obviously some role in setting it up. How do you go about setting it up and maintaining the people in there to make sure that everything's being dealt with in a good capacity?
So I actually set up our grievance committee. I'm not on the board, never have been. I kind of don't want to be, just so I can be an advocate for the orchestra. I set it up. I do the interviews. I will normally try to have a second person with me to hold the interviews. We do have one board representative that's kind of there to help, because if we do get like a high priority case that's like, yikes, I don't know if we can do it, I can go to that board person and be like, hey, is this too spicy for a community orchestra to kind of handle, or should I bump it up to you guys, or do we say, hey, this won't work out? So I do an open call, and I try to have in my mind what the seating would look like. So our first iteration of the board was like the ensemble manager, a rotating board position. So they're supposed to rotate every like 6 months or something during their tenure, so it's not the same board person. An admin person on admin, and then we tried to also have a regular orchestra member, like someone without an admin position. They're just a peer level orchestra person. We hold interviews for that, so I bring them all in. I say, hey, do you have experience in mediation, conflict resolution? You're going to read our grievance process. Does this jive with you? Can you meet every week if there's an issue to ensure that this is resolved quickly? And then if we don't get certain seats, we kind of open it up and start asking people specifically. Like there was a point in time where we didn't have an admin person on our grievance committee, so instead we reached out to a couple people that had told me that they had like a background in clinical psychology, like they were a counselor, things like that. Yeah, and sometimes you have to rotate people out a little sooner than others. That happens. You want to make sure people are engaged, and I guess a good problem, yet a bad problem with us is sometimes you'll go long times without having anyone submitting grievances, and then you'll find out that some people, right when one is submitted, going, hey, I can't exactly like jump on this right away. So you can kind of reach out to previous members to kind of help, or depending on what type of grievance it is, you can just assign one person to it. So the way my grievance committee is set up, I see a grievance come in, I can appoint someone to be an investigator, and there might be one more person who can kind of help out and, you know, talk through things, because it helps to have an extra set of ears that's not like in the mud of it. Cool. Hope that answered. Yeah. Anyone else? Hello.
Is there a membership fee to join?
I didn't touch on that. Yes, there is. So for WMGSO, our original dues were $25 a season. We had to increase that for the first time after 10 years this year because of how expensive things were getting. But the important thing being, we have a scholarship fund if you cannot afford it. And I slap that on there as soon as like people are trying to audition. I'm like, hey, if this fee is a barrier for you getting in, if you get in, that's okay. We have a scholarship fund. You don't have to tell me why. Just say you need to use it. And for our admin, up until this year, they didn't have to pay dues, but the issue we had is that once we grew so large, a lot of our membership was admin. And then we had different types of admin who, like, sometimes their workload didn't take effect until a certain like point in the year, or they're on like a sabbatical for a season, or their workload would look dramatically different from my workload. So we instituted this year with a survey. We asked our membership, and boy, did they want to give us more money than $25 a season. We made it so they have a reduced fee of $10 if you're an admin. So our fees are $35 this season, $10 if you're an admin. We have a scholarship fund you can also donate into. It'll continually run. We'll have money for it, but people can give extra money for it. And we happen to be, I think, one of the cheapest community orchestras with dues. I'm trying to remember the two other orchestras, but one of them that's community-led is $150. Someone else does $80, and one person does $100. So I had like 5 people approach me going, Amanda, why are our dues so cheap? And I went, well, a lot of people were in college when this started, and we couldn't give $100 to go here. And when I did the survey, it was like so many people being like, I'd give $50 or more. And I was like, whoa, let's not go jumping straight into that. I saw someone else with their hand raised. Are we good? Any other questions? We can watch, oh, okay, another one.
You don't need to be a college associate in order to join.
Correct. So for WMGSO specifically, I can't speak to other Gamer Symphony orchestras out there. You have to be 18 or older to join. Have some like musical literacy. You need to be able to read music, and you show up to rehearsals. Oh, you do have to be vaccinated, but we're already here, so yeah. If we don't have any other questions, I'll play our next video that we have for, oh, okay.
So if you filled out like the audition form a while ago, but it was past like the cutoff, do I need to fill it out again for this season, or is that already?
It depends when you filled out the form. If you filled out the form in 2018, yes. If you filled out the form this past year, no, I still have it on a list. So like, well, I don't want to dox people, but I have a very big list that shows me the instrument the person signed up for. And if it's a high, like if it's a seat that doesn't open up super often, it might be a while before you can get in. I do try to audition everyone who has signed up. I don't try to do it in like sections, because that would take forever. So say a trumpet position opened up, I'd be like, oh, we have 19 trumpets auditioning. I tell my music director to buckle in. We're going to be auditioning trumpets for 4 weeks, and then we hopefully have a trumpet at the end of it. But yeah, right. So technically, if you're in here and you're like, Amanda, I've been on this wait list for like 2 years, and I get an email. I'm on sabbatical, and I have an email ready to go on Monday that emails people being like, hey, thanks for signing up. We can't audition you at this time, but can you like please hold on? We'll let you know when we can. And you can talk to me at the end of this panel, and I can pull up and make sure that you're on it. Yeah. Woo. This is great. Okay, well, if you want to think of questions, that's fine. I'm going to play our next Indiegogo. You guys, I guess, are getting the exclusive seat here. You can see the fun new stuff we have going on. Oh. My gaming laptop died, so I'm using like a not fun laptop. All right, what do we have here? No! All right. This is terrible. Sorry, hold on, guys. All right, let's listen to main theme. And apparently we do have a specific pitch video that I was like gonna play real quick. We have like a minute.
We are the Washington Metropolitan Gamer Symphony Orchestra. We're a community ensemble in the DC area that performs arrangements of video game music, and we need your help to create our second studio album. Like many fans of both symphonic music and video game music, the Final Fantasy series is close to our hearts. From the first game on the NES to today, Nobuo Uematsu and the composers involved have produced some of the best orchestral music that video games have ever seen. Our arrangers have prepared wonderful versions of several tunes for full orchestra and choir, and we hope to have the opportunity to share them with the world.
So this is where you, our fans and community, come in. WMGSO is a non-profit orchestra, and that means every dollar we raise goes right back into our mission: affordable local performances, rehearsal, and upkeep expenses. We learned a lot as an organization while recording our first album, like just how much it really costs to record and mix a 100-piece ensemble. We underestimated these costs severely. Our big ask this time around reflects what we've learned about production costs for a group our size. It takes a lot for us to bring our music to the world.
Your support will allow us to go back to Omega Studios, the same studio where we recorded our first album. You can expect that same professional recording and mixing quality for Crystals in Time. Our unique arrangements require us to work with lawyers knowledgeable about the intricacies of music licensing to ensure we can legally distribute this music both as physical CDs and on your favorite streaming services. Your support helps us cover these expenses as well.
While restricting ourselves to music from a single series might initially imply less variety, we've already recorded and are mastering tracks in all kinds of musical styles to promote this campaign. From the serene majesty of the Final Fantasy VII main theme to Vamos a la Flamenco from the 9th installment of the series showcases a staggering volume of music. All of these singles were arranged in-house by members of the orchestra, from both relative newcomers to the world of arranging, as well as veteran arrangers who've been writing for us for nearly a decade. The album will feature the same breadth of talent. Check our campaign page for links to our promo singles.
So this is why we're asking you for help again. We cannot make this album without your support. Due to financial shortfalls we've experienced as a result of the pandemic, we can just barely keep putting on fun and affordable video game music concerts. Funding a full album ourselves is entirely beyond us. With your backing, we can bring our music to the whole world once again. We're really grateful for any help that you can give. Everyone who helps fund us will have their name included in the album's printed liner notes. Every share and every dollar matters.
There you have it. Thanks for coming to this panel, and tell your friends about our Indiegogo and find our table in the merch hall. Bye.